This is episode 2 of my journey with insulin resistance. So what I'm going to talk about in this video is what is insulin resistance. A lot of people don't know exactly what it is or how they are insulin resistant. They just know that, this means that I need to cut out carbs, this means that I need to lose weight, but it's a bit more complicated than that. And specifically my insulin resistance journey, if you want, or diagnosis was a bit different from the usual that you will hear or read about. And this is why I wanted to bring that awareness, because if you research insulin resistance, you get the same things over and over again. And sometimes it's a bit trickier than what you read or see. So first off, what I want to explain is what is insulin resistance. So insulin, to begin with, is a hormone that's produced by the pancreas, and this hormone is used to regulate the metabolism of carbohydrates, proteins, and fat. So what insulin does is that it allows glucose to enter your cell to use, and this return provides energy. Okay, so glucose, we need that in our cells to have energy. So what insulin does is insulin has a receptor on your cells. So what insulin does is that it comes to the cell, okay? It binds with the receptor and allows, if you want, an opening for glucose to enter the cell. So when our blood glucose increases with whatever we ate, this causes the size of the fat cell to expand. Okay, so if we are gaining weight, if we are eating a lot of carbohydrates, this allows the cell to get bigger and bigger and bigger. When this happens, the fat cells that you have, because we have gained weight, that fat cell is not shrinking, it's not staying the same, it's getting bigger. So when that cell gets bigger, the actual receptors, the actual insulin receptors on those cells, if you want to change in their shape and structure. And it's as if the cell is being kind of constrained, and that's causing the receptor to change. So the insulin that is coming to this cell to allow glucose into it is no longer in the right shape. So this is what causes it to be, if you want, insulin resistant. So when this fat cell gets bigger, receptor changes, insulin is not allowing glucose to enter the cell anymore. What happens? Your body sends a signal to your pancreas to produce more insulin. So it's kind of like, let's say you try to open a door and you unfortunately weren't able to open it by yourself. So you call in for more help. You might call in another person to help you push that door open. That person comes, tries to help you, the door doesn't open. We call in some more. You might end up calling in 10 people to open that door. Same thing when it comes to insulin. Insulin is trying to bind to the receptor to allow glucose to enter the cell, but unfortunately it's like they're knocking on the door and it's not opening, or you have one person that's trying to push, it's not opening, trying to get more in to push. So that in results causes our insulin levels to increase, and that also doesn't allow your blood glucose level to decrease, because you ate, your blood sugar level went up. Okay, insulin was supposed to take some of that and allow it to absorb into the cell. That's not happening because insulin is not able to open the door to your cell. So this causes your insulin levels to be high and your blood sugar levels to be high. In cases where, in my case, my blood sugar levels were never high, they were actually low. And I will, in episodes to come, I will explain why that may have happened with me, and I will explain a different side of what insulin resistance is and how you can be insulin resistant, have normal blood sugar levels, or even have hypoglycemic episodes, which was what happened to me and which was what was my case. But if we are talking the general concept of insulin resistance, this is what happens. And this is why your blood sugar levels are slightly elevated. Sometimes when you're in the beginning of insulin resistance, your blood sugar levels could be normal, or they can be a bit higher and put you in the state of pre-diabetes. So I will get into all of that in another video. I just want to explain what insulin resistance is in this video, and then we can move on to the rest, because the rest is more detail that I have to go into, and I don't want to make this video too long. And it needs its own attention, to be honest. So I will get into that. So you're probably wondering, if my insulin receptors on my fat cells are no longer in the same form or function they were before, how do I go on from here? Are they ever going to go back to a normal form, or is this a sentence of life for insulin resistance? This is where you need to understand that your fat cell became, if you want, the receptor became changed in its shape or changed in its function because your fat cell got bigger. So if we are able to reduce our weight and decrease the size of our fat cells, this will allow our insulin receptors to go back to a normal functioning receptor and go back into the shape and size that it's supposed to be. So, and this in return is going to allow better insulin sensitivity. What you need to know is that it is a process that takes some time to happen, depending on what your body's going through, depending on other conditions you may have. So I'm explaining to you insulin resistance in a very simple, straightforward way. But a lot of the time we have other factors that may be affecting this insulin resistance, which I'm gonna also get into in other videos. The next thing you may be wondering is, why does insulin resistance cause weight gain? I get this question a lot from patients, so they understand the concept when I explain it to them. But then they're like, okay, so why am I gaining weight? What does this have to do with me adding on weight or not being able to reduce my weight? And that's the very, very annoying thing about insulin resistance, is that it is a vicious cycle, and it's just all connected to each other. So what happens is that because the glucose isn't being received into the cell, this results your body to crave sugar more. So if insulin is not being able to absorb that glucose into the cell, it's almost as if you didn't really eat. So your craving for sugar, your craving for energy will be higher. And this is why a lot of people who are insulin resistant tend to feel very hungry right after they have already had a big meal. I will go into signs and symptoms of insulin resistance later. And I think that it would be a very interesting video to watch, because again, if you Google what insulin resistance is and what are the signs and symptoms, you may read the signs and symptoms and think to yourself, I don't have any of those. I didn't have any of them. I had one out of everything, out of all the signs and symptoms of insulin resistance, but I had something else that was a sign, and that will be a whole other episode. But my point is that you might read the signs and symptoms and think to yourself, I'm not insulin resistant. Nope, that's not me. I don't fit the criteria written here. So I will explain that later. But one of the signs, if you want clear-cut sign, is that you have a lot of sugar cravings and you will feel hungry after you've had a meal. And this is why it's so vicious, because you feel like you didn't eat. However, your body is overwhelmed with the glucose that you have given it, and it's not able to actually allow that glucose to go into your cells. So you end up still being hungry and eating more, which doesn't do your insulin resistance any good. Okay, so it's like the energy is there, it's within your body, but you're not being able to absorb it and use it. So because of our high insulin levels and the high glucose levels that are not being able to react with your cells, what happens? This is where weight gain comes in, because the insulin is not being able to interact with the receptor, glucose is not being able to go into your cell, so insulin finds somewhere else to take that sugar and that glucose and store it somewhere else, which will be in other tissues of your body, like your liver, your muscles, and your fat cells. So in that case, we see weight gain. We're always hungry. We're not allowing that glucose to go into our cells, and that is what causes this very vicious cycle of weight gain. It's super easy to gain weight being insulin resistant and very hard to lose it. again, I will go into those details in another video. I hope that was clear. I hope you understood the function of insulin, its importance for energy levels, and how being insulin resistant can actually make you gain weight very quickly. For me, I personally gained 25 kilos from the time that I became insulin resistant. And as a dietitian saying this, I knew what to do, I knew what to eat, I knew that I had to do exercise, and I was doing exercise. All of this still didn't help me if you want to lose weight or to be able to control my weight. And I will go into that also in another video, because I believe that there's a whole aspect of stress and anxiety in your life. And this, for me, was, if you want, what even led me into insulin resistance. And also because my insulin resistance was had a different effect on my body, this also caused me to not be able to, if you want, stabilize my blood sugar levels in the way that I wanted to. Again, like I mentioned, my blood sugar was very low most of the time. And I will also get into the diet that I was doing at that time, and what I believe from the research I've had and from my personal experience, the diets that you actually want to stay away from that could lead you over the edge of insulin resistance. We'll also get into stress, and how stress and anxiety was the main cause, or the main reason why my body became insulin resistant, basically. So I will get into all of that, but I do hope that this video was clear. I hope that you understood what insulin resistance is, and there really is a lot more to come in the whole topic of insulin resistance. I would love to hear your comments, your symptoms, your struggles, maybe something you want to ask me about this video, because I know that it wasn't your typical insulin resistant video. So yeah, I would love to hear and see your comments. Subscribe, stay tuned for more. I'm going to be putting a lot more information about insulin resistance and my personal experience about it, which is probably more beneficial than just Googling it. And so stay tuned, subscribe, comment, and I will see you soon.